Before we even get into this video, I just want you to check this out that I recently saw on the Candace Owens podcast on YouTube. Check this out. It's relevant to what we're going to talk about today.
Windows, Android, iOS, hopefully the future ones around the metaverse that will get built. Apple's stands out as the only one where one company can control what apps get on the device. Right? That wasn't the case in Windows. That isn't really the case on Android phones. I mean, Google might control what goes in the Play Store, but they've always made it so that you could sideload and have other app stores. I do think Apple has sort of singled themselves out as the only company that is trying to control, like unilaterally, what apps get on a device. And I don't think that's a sustainable or good place to be.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, wide world out there? Welcome back to the Expression of Love podcast, and welcome back to Become Your Own Breakthrough, for I have something to say. Being as complex as it already is, sometimes when stories like what's going on with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, and the citizens of China and all of these protests, with the levels of complication that we're dealing with, sometimes it's very easy to look at something like this that's going on somewhere that you've probably never been. You look at stories like this and you go, I really don't want to have anything to do with it, right? It's very easy to say, it's not me, it's not my home. I don't want to know the facts and the details and things. I already have it hard here as it is, right? I have bigger fish to fry than to be worrying about what's going on in China. But there's a couple things. One, don't be so quick to believe wholeheartedly in the man-made border lines that separate one country from another. Yes, when it comes to like airspace and flying, you have to pay attention to it. Yes, when it comes to the network and the internet, China as well as other countries have a tight grip on what is let into their television and internet networks over the whole country. But that does not mean that governments and companies, whether they're companies based in the United States or based elsewhere that do business in the United States, that multiple governments do not participate in projects and experiments with large companies. And what's very interesting, to me at least, is at the same time that we're seeing Twitter being attacked by the mainstream media as well as the left-leaning CEOs of companies like Apple, right? Tim Cook has threatened to remove Twitter from the Apple Store, the App Store, the Apple App Store, has threatened to remove Twitter from the one of the two places you can get it downloaded to your phone from. Right, you have the Google Play Store and you have the Apple App Store, and if you remove it from the App Store, then I'm sure Google Play will also follow suit. I don't know if Google has threatened to do so, but either way, censorship largely goes one way in this country. And so at the same time that Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, is threatening to remove Twitter from its App Store on the basis of there might be collusion with foreign governments and foreign investors in the company of Twitter, because Elon Musk has done business with like Russia and Ukraine and all of these things. And Elon Musk is such a bad guy, and investors and billionaires, whatever, right? That type of rhetoric with foreign governments is why Twitter is under attack via these, tech giants, if you will, like Apple. And at the same time that that's happening, you have this same person, Tim Cook, and Apple, working in tandem with the CCP to further subjugate and silence Chinese citizens, working with foreign governments and not allied foreign government. China is not an ally, so far as I'm aware. They're more like a competition or a rival of sorts. Working with them to do harm to their own citizens. Apple is, Tim Cook is. And I like to use his name because this is his company, right? We can't keep thinking of companies without thinking about the people and their actual names that run the companies and make decisions. Now, what do I mean? I mean, Apple just updated the iOS, I guess. They updated the phones, right? All of the iPhones got an update. And in the update, one of the things that happened to the Chinese, the phones in China, is that you're no longer able to airdrop the same way that you could before the update was installed. And they did not write that into the highlights. They didn't write that into the update bullet points, right? The highlights, the update that the update included. So basically, people who were a part of the mass protests that are going on in China, I may be able to insert some footage. I don't know. I should be able to, though. There's protests going on in China, and they're very large, and that doesn't usually happen in communist regimes because you are literally putting your life on the line and putting like jail time and ruined reputation on the line if you protest government in a communist regime. And people are being taken away, carted away, women being carted away to jail and whatnot. Some people are being beaten on.
Mercilessly beating innocent people for leaving their homes and spraying them with mysterious chemicals, all of which are perfectly reasonable medical procedures based on science.
In China during these protests. And what people are doing is they're taking out their iPhones, they're taping what's going on, they're video recording what's going on, and then they're able to airdrop their video footage to everybody that's around them. And then those people can airdrop it to everybody that's around them, and it can spread and it can leave the raw footage itself can go outside of Chinese, borders and be shared. And that's how we get access to some of this footage, because obviously they wouldn't let this footage just be, spread out to the world otherwise. And Apple, Tim Cook, has made it so that they cannot use airdrop in this way anymore in China right now. This is really happening. Right? Twitter is being looked at as an enemy. Apple is being looked at as a friend. That's very interesting. And I wanted to read you some things from this email that I got from the Daily Wire, the Daily Wire news outlet called I think the Morning Wire. And right here it says, Biden responds to China. And I want to read you a little bit of what it says. As protests against China's deadly lockdown policies gain momentum in more Chinese cities and here in the United States, the Biden administration's response is coming under more scrutiny. Indirect indignation. The Biden administration is taking heat for what critics say is a weak response to growing Chinese protests against the communist regime's draconian lockdown measures. The response, which came from an unnamed spokesperson from the National Security Council, has been characterized by critics as tepid and reluctant. The administration has avoided addressing the protesters other than to say they generally support, quote, everyone's right to peacefully protest, end quote. The administration went on to lightly criticize China's zero COVID policy, saying it's ineffective, rather than commenting on the clear abuses associated with implementing the policy. Remember, as a part of the country's zero COVID policy, millions of residents have been forcibly kept in their homes, with authorities even locking the doors from the outside at a number of housing complexes. And something that I probably won't be able to find footage of, but I've seen footage of myself on Rumble, is videos of authorities welding a metal bar across the outside of a door in a housing complex. So they're welding people inside. That's not good, right? That's pure tyranny. That's bad, right? That's evil dictator type of activity. And Apple, Tim Cook at Apple, takes away the ability for Chinese citizens to get this information and the activities that are going on at the protests out into the larger world to seek help. Apple is essentially saying, I don't care about you citizens if you're crying out for help. I want to be in the good graces of the Chinese government. This is what Apple is essentially saying, which is evil, right? It's demonic and demented and evil, and should be stopped, paid attention to. You know, somebody, possibly Tim Cook, should be in question for that act of colluding, you know, of putting this update into people's iPhones and taking their ability to ask the wide world for help when people are being welded into their buildings. And again, you know, jailed for peacefully protesting. And just for a moment, I want you to take a look at this letter written by Senator Hawley from Missouri, Senator Josh Hawley. I've come to greatly respect what Senator Hawley says publicly. I don't know him or his voting history personally, but I liked his questions for Justice Jackson, and I like what he said when he was being interviewed by Jordan Peterson. And the more that I see this guy on Twitter, the more I respect the guy. And this is his open letter from the United States Senate, from himself, to Tim Cook at Apple. He says, I write regarding Apple's ongoing collaboration with the totalitarian Chinese government. Your continued dependency on Chinese labor not only undermines the interests of the American economy and its workers, but has once again led your company to crack down on speech at the Chinese Communist Party's behest. Apple's activities in China are unconscionable and present substantial material risks to your stakeholders. I urge you to take meaningful steps to end operations in China to restore production to the United States. Pardon me. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began, the Chinese Communist Party has subjected the Chinese people to draconian public health measures. During the past week, dissatisfaction with the nation's so-called zero COVID policy came to a head from Beijing to Shanghai and Urumqi, I'm not sure. Citizens took to the streets to protest and voice their dissent. This included demonstrations at Foxconn factory in the city of, again, please forgive me, Shangzhou, one of the largest manufacturers of Apple's iPhone. After enduring weeks of stringent pandemic mitigation measures, workers protested and clashed with Chinese law enforcement. And videos of these confrontations, including shocking images of workers being beaten and kicked by officials in hazmat suits, were widely circulated on social media and in the press. Since Apple makes more than 95% of its iPhones in China, these disruptions pose substantial material risks to Apple stakeholders. To make matters worse, your company appears to be actively supporting the Chinese government's brutal crackdown. For example, public reports indicate that Apple, through a recent software update for iPhones in China, has modified the AirDrop function to make it more difficult for protesters to use this function to evade censorship and surveillance. Unconscionable though this decision may be, it is not surprising. Under your leadership, Apple has time and time again assisted the Chinese Communist Party in surveilling and suppressing the basic human rights of the Chinese people. At the same time, it appears that Apple might be importing this model of speech control to the United States. Reports indicate that your company might deplatform Twitter from the App Store as a consequence of the free speech policies implemented by Elon Musk. Well, it says new leadership or new ownership, excuse me, but we know the new owner is Elon Musk. Very, very, very interesting letter, and right on time for me to make this very video. All right, let's continue with your regularly scheduled programming. This is a very interesting yet not so surprising update in the world at large today. And what I mean by that is it seems like everybody is somehow at war right now. That we as a human collective are being made to fight each other and to hate each other and to dehumanize people that hold opposing viewpoints and opposing ideas to the ideas that we were conditioned to believe since we were children. And we are becoming softer and more fragile, right? We are seeing the hormone disruptors in the food, as well as the glorification of mental disorders, as well as the glorification of the act of self-diagnosing mental disorders, as well as the softening up of our military force and our teachers, and you know, all of the gun control rhetoric lies coming from the left-wing media, as well as all of the people who are dying suddenly. There is something not surprising about Tim Cook's decision to greatly hinder the ability for the Chinese citizens to cry out for help to the larger internet world, you know, outside of China's network. And it's not surprising because there is a multi-front, you know, a sort of multi-layered attack on free speech, on freedom in general, and on one's ability to rally people behind a worthy cause if that worthy cause goes against the wishes of the huge companies, the corporatocracy, if you will, the shadow government, whatever actually is behind the decision making of the people in the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organizations and all of the people that are making essentially bad choices at the expense of the citizens of Earth. And I'm using very generalized language because I don't want to accidentally spread a lie, right? I don't want to be so wrapped up in what's wrong that I'm spreading lies. And then two, I also want to play the game, right? I don't want to be immediately censored so bad that my voice never gets out or whatever. But I digress. I'm not surprised that right now Apple made this decision, but I think it is clear enough. You understand what I'm saying? I think the decision to do this is a clear message that big tech, right? Apple, Microsoft, you know what I'm saying? All the rest of them, big tech, except for Twitter right now, is on a mission to aid and abet the globalist leaders of the corporatocracy that secretly but not so secretly run the world and have a lot of depopulation things that they say very publicly. You know, about there's too many humans on the planet, and there's a joint effort between big tech and the corporatocracy, the larger corporatocracy, that seems to move in the direction of some sort of mass genocide of human beings, period. All of us seem to be the target of the globalist regimes. But what can we do about it? What are we supposed to do about all of this bad news? What are we supposed to do in our own home? What are we supposed to do in the world at large? Well, there are two things. First, and you already know, my movement is #TellTheTruth. The only thing necessary in any successful revolution is that the people at the bottom never stopped telling the truth, which never allowed for the morale of the good guys to lessen or weaken to the point that they were manipulated and taken over by the bad guys. All revolutions that actually worked and were worked in favor of quote unquote the good guys, they all ran on a mission of #TellTheTruth. So that's the first thing, is tell the truth and tell it relentlessly and fearlessly. And the second thing that we can do and that we must do is rally your community behind a worthy goal. Have a goal in mind. Start meeting people, talking with people, and gathering people together so that you can figure out the roadblocks between right now and you reaching that goal, and then reach that goal. So whether that is holding government officials accountable via the correct bureaucratic processes as well as direct messaging from the people to them, to their office, or whether that is something more simple like cleaning up your community, dealing with the gang violence and more down-to-earth issues like littering in the street and getting gas station, replacing gas station food with organic good foods and good meat in your community, whether that is getting together with community organizers and putting projects in place for children that are growing up in broken homes that want, to be adopted, but CPS sucks. So, just no matter what the goal is, find out a way, talk with people in your community and start to rally people behind this worthy cause. Get people to sign a petition. Get people to know who you are and what you're about. Meet people. Don't be so afraid of people. Most people are neutral. They're not evil, but they're not necessarily good either. But they would choose good if given the chance. They just feel like they've never been given the chance. Go give them that chance to be good. Trust that there is a God and God is good. And when you are rallying people behind a worthy cause, somebody has got your back that is more powerful than any evil in the world. In fact, the creator of evil itself. So, yeah, it is time. It is time, good people, to take your life back and become your own breakthrough. Once again, my name is Soul Expression. This is the Expression of Love podcast. Thank you so much for rocking out with me. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already had the chance. Leave a comment below whether you want to argue against something I said or support something I said. I would love to interact with you in the comments. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.
Expressions of